Hey everyone! Today's video is about when he burns you. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Let's get going. Katsuki couldn't take it. Why had All Might chosen stupid Deku? What was so great about him? He was just some quirkless loser 8 months ago, and now he's supposed to be the next symbol of peace? It was bullshit. He was supposed to be number one. How could he do that when Deku had All Might's power running through him? When he returned to his dorm room, he slammed the door shut behind him and kicked his trash bin over. Damn it! He yelled. How was he supposed to be number one when his lifelong hero had chosen somebody else, and Deku of all people? Angrily, he turned to face his door. On the back of it was an All Might poster. He reached for the paper, his hands forming fists, and pulled away from the wall, taking the poster off and dropping it on the floor. He screamed. Sparks began forming on his fingertips. It should have been him. He should blow that stupid Deku to pieces like he'd been dreaming of ever since they were kids. He'd get to take down Icy Hot too, his only other real competitor. There was a light knock on the door, causing Katsuki to turn. He didn't want to see anybody. He didn't want to be seen in this state. Go away, he barked out. When the doorknob began to turn, his anger flared even higher. I said go away, he yelled. Standing in the now open doorway was his girlfriend, Wyan. Her eyes were wide with worry. All he could focus on was his rage. His hatred for Deku that just kept growing stronger and stronger by the second. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. All his life, all he'd ever worked for was being the top hero one day. He'd worked for it. Deku was just having it handed to him. Wyan took a step forward, closing the door behind her. Katsuki, what's wrong? She extended one hand towards her boyfriend. But when she saw just how furious the ash blonde was, she retracted her arm. Katsuki couldn't tell her, not only because he promised All Might, but because he was embarrassed. He was always gloating, telling everybody about how he was going to be the best. How was he supposed to tell anybody, especially Wyan, that he couldn't? How was he supposed to explain that he was going to have to take second place, and to Deku of all people? How could he look at any of them in the eye? He had to get rid of Wyan. She couldn't see him like this. Go away, he growled. He glared up at her. They could argue about it once he calmed down, but he knew that if they argued while he was riled up, something would happen. But she didn't listen. Katsuki, part of this relationship thing is talking to each other. Talk to me. She closed the distance between them so she could take her boyfriend's hand in hers. Her pleading eyes met Katsuki's, but it didn't calm him. No, it riled him up even more. How was he even supposed to look her in the eye? He had become second to some quirkless shit. How was she supposed to look at him? How was anybody supposed to? I don't want to talk, he said, pulling his hands from hers. His hands had been sparkling. He couldn't let Wyan touch them, or she could get hurt. Fine, said Wyan, and she walked over to Katsuki's bed. She sat down on the mattress, patting the space beside her. Then we won't talk. We'll just sit. His heart began flaring. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve Wyan. He wasn't good enough. She had fallen for the guy designed to be the number one, and that wasn't him anymore. He grabbed her shoulders and forced her up off the bed. Just leave me be. Before he knew it, his worst nightmare had come true. His hands felt warmer and warmer as sparks began popping from his fingertips until full explosion was unleashed. He watched in horror as Wyan flew to the wall, crashing into it and causing a rip in the drywall. His eyes widened as he processed what he'd just done. "Ryan!" he yelled, rushing over to his bed and cradling his girlfriend in his arms. Her head was dripping blood, and there was a large burn mark on her shoulder. The entire fabric of her shirt around the area had been burned away, leaving just the charred edges giving off smoke. The door flew open, leading to Sarah and Ashita standing in the doorway with wide eyes. Their gaze shifted from Katsuki's horrified face to Ryan's unconscious figure, and Ashita screamed. "Ryan!" she yelled, rushing in. She knelt on the bed beside Katsuki and turned towards Sarah. "Call the hospital!" Tears were already forming in Katsuki's eyes. He couldn't believe what he'd done. He attacked Ryan. When she woke up, she was going to hate him. He couldn't take it. "I'm so sorry," he cried out, hugging his girlfriend's unconscious form to him tightly. "I'm so sorry." The next 20 minutes were a blur to Katsuki. He watched helplessly as Aizawa ran into his dorm room and used a surprising amount of strength to pick up the unconscious girl. He followed like a lost puppy, even getting into the back of the ambulance when it finally arrived. The paramedics tried to stop him, but he just kept screaming, "That's my girlfriend." When his thoughts finally caught up to him, he was sitting in the hospital waiting room. His forehead was resting in his open palms, elbows on the arms of the uncomfortable waiting room chair. Tears were streaming down his face. People stared at him and whispered. But for the first time, he ignored it. He couldn't focus on them. All he could focus on was Ryan was going to hate him. It felt like hours until a doctor came out calling his name. Katsuki shot up out of his chair, rushing towards the doctor. He needed to know that Ryan was going to be okay. "Mr. Bakugou," the doctor said as she looked down at the clipboard. Her lips pursed tightly together as her eyes scanned the paper before she looked up at him. "Your friend is expected to make a full recovery." Katsuki sighed in relief. If she was going to be okay, he could live with that. He could live with being hated, as long as she was okay. Thank God. He breathed out. And also," the doctor said. Katsuki's red eyes shot up to her, and she continued. "She's got a serious concussion. Could take weeks to heal. 3rd-degree burns on the left shoulder. And she's got a cracked rib." Katsuki felt like he was going to throw up. Ryan laid in a hospital bed, physically broken because of him. He couldn't take it. After a few weeks, he visited her. Katsuki stepped inside and felt his heart shatter. Ryan laid on the bed motionless. A thick layer of gauze was wrapped around her head, and silver machines were hooked up to her. Tubes and needles inserted into her arms and chest, all over her body, and her shoulder. Katsuki couldn't look at it. He kept his eyes focused on her forehead, then her torso, then the floor. Slowly, he walked into the room and sat down in one of the chairs beside the bed. He wanted to reach out and just hold Ryan's hand, but he restrained himself. That's how he got into this mess in the first place. Fresh tears fell down his face, and he hid it in his hands to hide them. Then, he heard a light groaning. Katsuki's head shut up to see Ryan's eyes had opened. They looked groggy and dazed, but they were her eyes. "Shh," said Katsuki. He scooted his chair closer to the bed, but didn't make any move to touch her. "Go back to sleep." Ryan's dazed eyes shifted over to Katsuki. "Hey." Her voice sounded weak and strained as her eyes scanned Katsuki, then fell to get what little view of her shoulder he could without moving her head. "I'm gonna look so badass," she said, a light smile creeping onto her face. Ryan. Their eyes met, and another tear fell from Katsuki's eye. "No tears," she said as her eyes shifted back up to Katsuki. I'm sorry, Waya. I love you, she said. Katsuki opened his eyes slowly to see his girlfriend's hand slowly reaching for his. He yanked it away faster than he'd ever moved anything before. Katsuki swallowed his sob. I should go, he said. He turned to the door and moved as fast as he can to take the first step out of the room as Wyan spoke up again. Say you love me too. Katsuki couldn't face her. He loved her more than anything, but he had the feeling that when she was herself again, she would hate him just as much as Katsuki loved her. I love you too, he said. Without another word, he walked out of the hospital room and back into the waiting room. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you liked the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Goodbye!